Hello folks, I'm on the UK launch of the Chery Tiggo 7 and Tiggo 8 today. I'm going to start this video in the Tiggo 7 and then later on we're going to be in the Tiggo 8. The main difference between them, the Tiggo 7 is your 5-seat family SUV. I suppose its natural rivals would be the Nissan Qashqai, 𝑚G HS, that kind of size vehicle. And then the Tiggo 8 is actually a 7-seat family SUV. Well, not just any 7-seat family SUV, but it's going to be the cheapest plug-in hybrid 7-seat family SUV on the market. Now the Tiggo 7 that I'm in now, down this bum-clenchingly tight country lane, is actually really well spec'd. If you look at the amount of kit you get as standard and the amount of technology you get as standard, that's probably like a level 2 or level 3 trim with a lot of brands. It is very generous indeed, and I'll pop a few of the highlights up on the screen for you. But despite that generous spec, this 1.6 petrol version of the car that I'm in now is only 25 grand. And in fact, the top spec version I think is a shade under 28 grand, which is mightily impressive. Now, if you go up to the plug-in hybrid, we're only looking at 29,995, and that Chery Super Hybrid system is effectively the same system that you're getting in the cars, in the group's other cars, things like the 𝙇𝙄𝙉𝙆𝙎, for example, which is the last month was the UK's biggest selling plug-in hybrid. Amazing for a new brand, really. And I'll talk more about the brand in a minute, but you have to be impressed with what they've come to market with. I mean, this car, for example, has got a 7-year warranty. You get 3 years RAC cover with it, and you can have a 3-year maintenance package on it for 500 quid. I don't think that's too shabby at all, and it's certainly going to make some of the more traditional rivals sit up and take a look, because it does appear to be offering a lot of value. Now, I've only got the car for a relatively short period of time today, so I can't give you a full-fledged review, but I can tell you how the car feels, what it's like on the road, and talk a bit about the quality of everything. And let's start on that one. The interior quality and the build quality is, I think, exceptional for the price. It really is very, very good. Everything's well screwed together. The choice of materials is really nice. Some of the materials in here feel more premium than you're going to get on a VW. And if you think about the closest rival in the VW range to this, you're going to be looking at the Tiguan. And look at the price that a Tiguan starts at and what you get with it as standard, and the warranty, and how much a service package might be, and all that kind of stuff. And yes, this car is probably going to have a different buyer to the Tiguan, because the person buying the Tiguan's probably wants that VW badge. They want something they know, that's very familiar. It's a little bit premium, perhaps. But honestly, if you stuck a VW badge onto this right now, would you know? Let's talk about comfort. The seat's fantastic. Like, it's very comfortable. I've driven here in my Tesla Model 3, which I don't think is too bad on that front. And this seat feels like a big upgrade, in fairness. We've also got a nice cushioned central armrest that's in just the right place. And these cars come with double glazing as standard, silence glazing as they call it. So you've basically got 2 panes of glass instead of 1, and that keeps out loads of the traffic noise from the road. A car just went past, barely a sound. And the refinement generally is impressive, particularly when you consider it's a reasonable sized car. It's got a 1.6 petrol engine, which you might expect to be a little bit gruff, perhaps. And in terms of the sort of volume within the cabin, all very, very impressive. Suspension wise, it can be a wee bit fidgety at times. You're not going to be thrashing this thing around B roads and having a right laugh. It's a family SUV, so you're not buying it for that. I think it's more than competitive within its class. It's not uncomfortable in any way. You could argue it could be a tiny bit more compliant in the bends, but most people just won't notice things like this. It's just boring car nerds like me that do. In terms of the drivetrain, as I said, so that 1.6 litre petrol engine, and it's mated to an automatic gearbox. It's not going to win any awards, but it's certainly, again, competitive. And that's what this car is telling me so far. It's very competitive. Despite it being one of the cheapest cars in its segment, it doesn't feel that way. Today's video is sponsored by leasing.com,
which is the leasing comparison site. And we don't just offer lease deals on cars, we offer them on vans too. Isn't that right, Jim?
It is. Leasing.com is the only comparison site that looks at the whole market. That means not just deals from brokers, but also from the funders directly, even from manufacturers directly, and from dealerships. That should mean there are more deals available, and hopefully you're able to get access to more vehicles and lower prices. So whether you're an old pro when it comes to car leasing, or perhaps you always PCP your cars normally, or perhaps you even pay cash, have a look in the link in the video description or scan this QR code and see if car leasing actually could save you a few quid. Thanks to leasing.com for sponsoring today's video. I'm just coming up to the national speed limit area now, so I can ask the car to go. It's okay, there's a tiny bit of delay, but it's reasonably responsive, and there's plenty of mid-range grunt. You know, it's not lacking for power, despite on paper not looking like the most exciting thing in the world. Chery make their own engines, and they have done since day one. They actually started off in 1999 as an engine manufacturer, and they've sold engines under license for donkey's years to people, various third-party clients, one of which is John Deere, funnily enough. But they also started building their own cars in 2001, and they currently export cars all over the world. I think they've sold over 5 million cars to date. So Chery's not a new brand. I think I heard this morning they're in 91 different international markets. So it's not a new brand, it's just new to the UK. But they told me that they've been planning to come to the UK for 20 years, but they decided to do it when they could do it in a sustainable way. And their focus is very much on sustainability rather than like global domination, which is quite a nice thing to hear. You know, they want it to be sensible, they want to build a reputation, and they're more focused on that than just necessarily selling loads of cars at any cost, which is quite reassuring to hear. Obviously the proof in the pudding with these things will be when they've been on the road for a little while, and we know a bit more about reliability and stuff. They've done quite a lot to put our minds at ease regarding things like supply chain and dealership networks. I think at the moment in the UK they've got 26 dealerships. They won't share front doors with other Chery brands, so you won't get an Amoda JQ Chery dealership. They will be separate front doors, as it were. And they're going to have over 100. That's the plan, but we've got 26 at the moment. They've said they could get replacement parts in 48 hours. They've got a big UK warehouse, but they've also got a contract with DHL to send parts from all over the shop. And they've done a lot of work with 𝙇𝙄𝙉𝙆𝙎. And 𝙇𝙄𝙉𝙆 are quite a big deal when it comes to safety, car safety, and working very closely with the insurance industry to make sure that the cars are repairable and that the insurers are not going to kind of hate them immediately, which is quite important. You could come out with the best car in the world at the lowest price, and if you can't insure it, it's a bit of a pain in the bum. So yeah, there's a lot of good, positive stuff around this, and as I said, the proof in the pudding will be further down the road, but initially it's really quite impressive. MPG wise, I put the WLTP figure up on the screen for you. In this little drive I'm doing here, I mean, I've only done 20 minutes so far. We're getting 33 MPG, which is unastounding, to be fair. But it's not terrible. But don't forget, there's also that Chery hybrid system In the 𝙄𝙄𝙉𝙆𝙎, it's called the super hybrid system, which is a plug-in hybrid that you actually don't really need to plug in. It's quite complex, but really quite clever. And you can get one of those for 30 grand. Now, one of the things that Chery have told us about is that, you know, they like to have R&D centres all over the world so that they can tailor the cars, sort of fine-tune the cars for the market that they're going to, rather than just saying, this is the car we build, the whole world can have that. And one of the points someone made was that in a lot of markets, they don't have roundabouts, and we do in the UK. So they need the gearbox and drivetrain to be able to sort of come slow down and then quickly take off again, rather than slowing down, coming to a stop, and just things like that. You know, thought's gone into it. So folks, while I can't give you a full review of this car because I simply don't have it for long enough, I haven't been able to live with it on a day-to-day basis, I haven't done a long journey in it, I haven't gone to Sainsbury's with it, I haven't had kids and luggage and a dog in it and all that kind of stuff that I normally do before I give you a full review. But I can tell you about my first impressions, and my first impressions of this car is that it's incredibly impressive for the money. And I think taking the price out of it, if you compare it to other cars in its segment, like all the other cars in its segment, it definitely competes. It's just occurred to me, folks, that I have sort of glossed over the infotainment system and stuff. The factory infotainment system's actually quite good. You've got some sort of haptic controls here for the aircon or touch capacitive controls for the aircon. And when you click on those, they bring up the aircon screen, but you can just control everything quite easily by having a little tippy tap. You've also got buttons on the steering wheel. The screen-based stuff is relatively easy to use, and I'm using Apple CarPlay at the moment, and that looks great. The screens are bright, they're colourful, they're easy to read. I've also just got to mention the 360 camera, the reversing camera in this is as good as you're getting really premium brands. It is really very, very good. And it's much better than you'll find in Japanese cars, which are a bit lacking in that department. But honestly, it's really premium. I think a lot of people, I don't just mean manufacturers, but I mean a lot of consumers feel somehow threatened sometimes by these Chinese brands. And I look at it in a bit of a different way. I think if they keep producing cars like this that feel really quite well sorted and really quite compelling, and actually in a lot of areas like standard spec and technology and the materials and even build quality, if they're doing better than the traditional brands for a lower price, all that means is those traditional brands are going to have to work a hell of a lot harder to get your money. And that means we should end up with a more competitive marketplace. And competitive marketplaces generally increase quality and reduce price, because you're not going to win over the consumer and make them part with their money for your product that's not quite as good and costs more money. So instead of looking at all these Chinese brands as a threat, I sort of feel like it's really exciting. And if we end up with better cars for a lower price, bravo. So I'm now in the Chery Tiggo 8, and what I thought might feel just like the 7, but obviously a little bit longer, actually feels like a completely different car. This one has got the super hybrid system, or the Chery hybrid system as it's known in the Chery branded cars, and it certainly feels a lot more immediate on the right foot. It's far more responsive on the throttle. I mean, it feels like it's got a lot of grunt, I must say. The steering's a lot lighter in this. I don't know whether that's an individual driving setting or if it's just the way the car is, but it feels a lot lighter. And I actually prefer the slightly firmer feel that I had in the Tiggo 7. And a couple of other things of note is we've got a bigger infotainment screen in this one. We've got a 15-inch infotainment screen, but we've lost those shortcut buttons along the top of the dash here for the aircon and that kind of stuff. So you are left to sort of go into the screen or obviously use voice commands, etc. for that kind of stuff. You've also got a different driver information display. The other thing that's quite apparent is I've now got speakers in the headrest, so the sat-nav commands are coming through the speakers in the headrest. And you may think, well, what's the point? It's so I hear them as the driver, but the rest of the passengers don't have to have their listening pleasure interrupted by all the sat-nav commands. And it also means if there's a lot of noise going on with the cars, the kids are screaming at each other or something along those lines, you're still getting those important sat-nav commands. So that's actually a really nice feature. And I must admit, the more I drive this car, the more it would have made sense to do 2 separate videos, but I just don't have time to do that today, unfortunately. But maybe I'll get time to get one of these in for a proper review at some point and go through it in a bit more detail for you. But what driving this car has done for me is really want to try the Tiggo 7 with the hybrid system, because this hybrid system, I was massively impressed with it in the 𝘼𝙁𝙁𝙄𝙇𝙄𝑗 9, and I'm immediately impressed with it in this. It's got like some of the characteristics of driving a full EV. And before you petrol lovers vomit into your cornflakes, that's good. You know, with an EV, you've got that instant power, you've got assisted braking and stuff. There's a lot of driving characteristics about an EV that you do miss when you get used to it and you get back into a traditional petrol car. So this does seem to have quite a bit going for it. Having said all that, out of the two, I probably prefer the steering feel and the suspension in the Tiggo 7, but your mileage may vary. Now, a 7-seat car should be a practical car, but with it in 5-seat mode, you've got still getting on for a 500-litre boot. When those back seats go up, you're down to 100 and something litres. So, you know, if you're carrying 7 passengers, don't necessarily expect to carry their luggage as well. You certainly might need to invest in a roof box or something at that point. But a lot of people with a 7-seater, you know, they use it in 5-seat mode most of the time, and they just have those extra seats for those very odd occasions when they've got a grandparent or extra children in the car or something like that. So maybe it's not too much of a problem for you. In terms of the frugality of the hybrid system, I've only been driving the car for 10 minutes, so it's difficult for me to say. But the car's only got 20% battery left, and in the last 29.6 miles, it's achieved 57.7 mpg. So I have to think that's what you're getting on combined petrol and battery mode. So a hybrid working as a hybrid should really. Now when the battery level gets below a certain amount, say 20%, it will automatically flick over into sort of a smart mode, and that means it will start replenishing the battery using power from the engine. And it's all really quite clever and it's all quite smart, but you can just leave it to do its own thing, and it seems quite happy to do so. So between the two cars, I think I probably prefer the drive of the Tiggo 7, but I prefer the drivetrain that's in the Tiggo 8. And in terms of the interior and stuff, I can live with the smaller infotainment display. I actually like having those shortcuts on the dash in the Tiggo 7. So that feels like the one I'd probably more naturally be drawn to of the two. But obviously if you need 7 seats, you need 7 seats. So this would be the one to go for. But this super hybrid system is very impressive. Nothing wrong with that petrol system and the automatic gearbox that comes in the ICE versions at all, actually. But the super hybrid just feels, I don't know, maybe as I'm sort of a day-to-day electric car driver, it feels more natural to me. It feels a bit more effortless, and that appeals, as does that MPG, if I'm being honest. At some point, someone will ask me in the comments of this video if I've been paid by a manufacturer to say nice things about their car, particularly as it's a Chinese one. And no, I haven't. And no, I haven't been offered. And no, I wouldn't have accepted if I had, because I've got something called integrity. And I believe in giving you honest content, and if I'm honest with my content, hopefully you'll come back and watch more of it. And on that note, this is the point where I'm going to invite you to subscribe to my channel. It costs you nothing, it helps me out, and you're a nice person, so I know you'll take the 3 seconds required to click that subscribe button and click the notification bell. I also appreciate a thumbs up. It really does help to get the video noticed and pushed up the algorithm. And I've heard about something called hype now on YouTube. If you see a hype button, please press it, because apparently that's good for me. Massive thanks to leasing.com for sponsoring today's video. If you do want to look at the latest lease prices on the Tiggo 7 or the Tiggo 8, click on the link in the video description or scan the QR code that's popping up on your screen. Just scan that with a camera on your phone and it will take you directly there, and it will tell leasing.com that I've sent you. Thanks ever so much for watching, folks. I'm sorry if I've rambled on. I kind of do that. See you on the next one. Huge thanks to all my channel members for your continued support. I really do appreciate it.